So that's 5:30 by my watch. So I will call this August 24th, 2017 meeting of the Carson City Library Board of Trustees to order. And we can proceed with the roll call.
Chairperson Hayes.
Present?
Vice Chair Solinger. Trustee Liverati.
Here.
Trustee Long.
Here.
Trustee Patton.
Here.
A quorum's present.
Thank you. Moving on to item 2, public comment. If any members of the public wish to address the Library Board of Trustees, now would be the time. Seeing none, we can move on to item 3, approval of the meeting minutes from the previous meeting. Did everybody have time to review those minutes, and are there any changes necessary? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Okay.
I'll second.
A second from Mr. Liverati. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to item 4, the Friends of the Carson City Library report.
I think we got our report in time to be in the packet this time. And that came in fairly late, so I don't think anything has happened since then, except that we had a meeting and agreed to take part in several different community events over the next few months. So you'll be seeing us more and more around town. And that's pretty much it.
Excellent, thank you very much. Moving on to item 5, Part A, for discussion and possible action, election of board chair and vice chair. Are there any nominations for chair? We'll begin with chair.
Do it again.
I will nominate Jeremy to do it again.
I will accept that nomination.
I'll second.
Okay, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries, and I am the chair once again. Moving on to election of the vice chair. Is there a nomination for vice chair?
I'd like to nominate Amanda Long for the vice chair, please. You come late, that's what happens.
I thought Diane wanted to do it. I was fine with that.
You don't get a second, you're not in. So.
What?
If you don't get a second, it doesn't happen.
I will
Well-
second that nomination.
She can accept or decline the
That's
nomination
true.
as well. So, okay. In that case, we have a motion and a second. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you, Amanda. Moving on to item 5B, the smoking area on the Carson City Library property. And I believe we have a presentation for that.
Okay, so Sina Loy, Library Director for the record. 5B and 5C are related, and this is essentially looking at how we can eliminate the use of covert areas of our facility by individuals when we are not open. And in those areas, they are also when we are open, eliminating the negative aspects of individuals just hanging out in front of the library so that patrons feel comfortable coming into the building. So what we have for 5B is we have a proposal in your packets to move the smoking area, and I'm going to let Diane kind of navigate on the mouse from the alcove kind of at the front of the building to the entrance of the parking lot where we do have a pavered flat area where we can place ashtrays so that can be disposed of. We also have a smoking area in the back of the building, which we would also be moving. That would be helpful for staff because we do have individuals who decide to hang out in the back of the library building before we are open, and it is uncomfortable for staff to come into work. And we want to try and eliminate that as best as possible. By moving that smoking area, we would still be providing those patrons who smoke a location to do so, but away from the front doors of the library where the smoke does come into the library, and everybody has to smell that and breathe that smoke. So are there any questions on that item?
Just a clarification, as I understand it, we are required to have a smoking area, is that correct? We can't just eliminate it?
I don't actually know off the top of my head, but I can look into it for you. Of course, you guys are probably going to vote on it today.
It's our understanding that each city building does have a designated smoking area.
Diane Baker for the record. I was speaking with the risk manager today regarding this, and there is a city policy for a smoking area to be 25 feet or more away from the building. So I don't know if we can infer from that that we do need to have a smoking area, but that is city policy.
25 feet away would be like the parlor.
Just one question. Does this mean you're just, instead of 2 smoking areas, you're going to have just the one?
Correct.
And are we sure that the people who hang around in the back will come around to the front to use that one?
If they don't, that gives us the opportunity to ensure that they do, or we can call the sheriff and ask them to
Okay.
help enforce that
Okay.
request.
Good.
So that seems like a really long way away from the building. Like, I know that we don't want it anywhere near the building. I don't smoke anymore, so it doesn't affect me. But it seems like it would be kind of difficult to get patrons to go that far to.
So the reason that we determined that that was the best location, we did work with the Sheriff's Department in discussing what locations would work. We do have lower level windows all in that addition there, and so moving the smoking area anywhere around that, if those windows are open, that smoke is going to be coming into our building. And then if you get around to the other side of the single-story part of the library, you're getting around to the back of the building, where we are trying to not encourage people to be.
Will you take the benches out and move them down there?
At
Or
this
one
time,
bench?
at this time, we would not move the benches, but we have been talking to Public Works on what we would be able to do to accommodate that there, if necessary.
It just looks like an awkward spot for when you're pulling into the library. Like, that's what I feel like. Not for.
Across the side.
Yeah. Well, that's what I'm thinking, and I know they can smoke right there at that bus stop, and they do. Is there any space over there? I know that's kind of.
That's kind of where.
Well,
That's kind of
Diane-
where I was looking too. Is what about over there by the bus stop?
Well, that's still within 25 feet of the building.
And Diane Baker, for the record, also between the bus stop and the front door, that's our ADA access to the library. We don't want a smoking area in that, from that location. We're open to suggestion, but pretty much anywhere around the one-story or main library, there aren't any likely locations. And then around the two-story, again, we have functioning windows. So that creates, again, a problem where we can't have it near the building, even though, there's not a door there, it's still near a building part of the building where there's an entrance or windows.
Diane, right across the street from the proposed area, with the little triangle area, that's kind of like a little
Let's see, sorry.
park.
This down here, there's cobblestone and
Yeah.
a walkway
Yeah.
in that section.
To me, there's at least some shade there too. I don't know that people use the walkway when they've got the sidewalk, but that seems to me a little better than the other place. It's just,
I'm going to go ahead and say it. Do we really want to make it convenient for smokers to smoke by the library? I mean, that's.
No, but if you make it harder, then you're going to probably have more people smoking, and then you're going to be calling and having that nuisance as well, is my thought. And they're going to be throwing away butts over there too.
Again, Diane Baker. We do expect, as this is transitioned in, we do expect individuals that will, either when we're not there or whatever, yes, until the shift is complete, we do have to move the ashtrays. We have ones that are meant for outside use, and we will be posting signs. But until we actually move the ashtrays, we can't enforce it. The one concern about the walkway is that we may have to ask Public Works or Facilities to take the cobble out, because the only flat space is the walkway there, and since that's an actual walkway from, in the area, not only from Smith's, but for individuals in the neighborhood, I don't think we can take over the walkway as the smoking area.
Natalie Wood for the record. Just to add from a programming perspective, the grassy area in the front, we do utilize a few times a year for programs. So the solar eclipse, we utilize that area. If we do put a smoking section near that, that limits our ability to have a program there, and also it limits how close we could have a program to that. That also is close to the Digitorium exit door that we utilize and open up for those events. So that's like our summer learning programs, our solar eclipse, stuff like that. So just from a program perspective, that limits utilizing that space. We also go outside for story time sometimes and pick up pine cones and grass and play and do some learning activities in the front. So it just limits it there.
And our secret garden is a no smoking area as well. I do know Diane had sent Jeremy and myself an article and a couple comments, and I just want to get that on the record for her, that she's a former physician as well. Observation that those who smoke away from the building still carry residue of smoke, that the smell of smoke on their hair, clothing, etc. when they return indoors.
I'd like to propose that we accept their request and allow that to be the new smoking area.
Okay.
I'll second that.
Okay. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. And moving on to item 5C.
Okay, so this kind of along the same vein, what we have is in your packets, you're going to see a report of the usage of the Wi-Fi and the times of the usage of that Wi-Fi, and those are the number of users using the Wi-Fi, and you can see after we're closed, like for instance on Saturday we close at 4 o'clock, that we do still have a consistent amount of users using that Wi-Fi into Sunday morning. And so one of the things that we wanted to discuss, we had also discussed this with the sheriff, was the potential of reducing the number of Wi-Fi hours we had available to the public outside of our open hours, because we would still have Wi-Fi during our open hours, to hopefully reduce the number of individuals hanging out around the building when we were not open. Personally, I think there's two sides to this. I think that it could be a huge help, but I also think that we could be restricting Wi-Fi to people who need access. And so I'm not quite sure which way to go with this, but I do think that it would greatly reduce the amount of transient individuals staying on library property throughout the night using the Wi-Fi, because they would have to go somewhere else.
Just out of curiosity, we have video cameras and everything around. Are we able to see any of that activity at night?
We do not have video cameras outside of the interior of the building.
Just out of curiosity, so it looks like the number of users doesn't dip below 14, it looks like. Have you been able to identify the IP addresses and rule out any library equipment that could be connected?
So there is a couple pieces of library equipment that do stay connected. For instance, like if a staff member leaves their iPad at the library, then their iPad generally is still connected. But it's still, on average, 8 to 10 individuals using the Wi-Fi are not library they're not library staff or staff machines using that Wi-Fi coverage. For instance, on Monday, after the Friends Board meeting, there were individuals out by the front of the Secret Garden. There's kind of like a little nook area that is flat, and there were individuals who had set up camp. And then I asked them to leave. They did not leave, and so I proceeded to move around to Smith's and wait for the sheriff's department to come out and ask them to leave, but they had cell phones. That doesn't mean they have cell phone service, but it does mean that they can connect to the Wi-Fi.
So all the computers like upstairs are getting turned off at night?
All of the public computers that we have in our building are hardwire connected. They're not connected to the Wi-Fi. So the only computers connected to the Wi-Fi would be staff devices or the items in our digitorium, and this is the main library Wi-Fi, not the digitorium Wi-Fi that we're looking at the stats.
I mean, this seems reasonable to me.
I think it's kind of interesting that you don't think this is anything with the people that are, this isn't with anybody that's like coming off of a job and knows that this is the only place they can get Wi-Fi?
That's not something that we can determine. And so that's where my hesitation comes in, is individuals who might need Wi-Fi. I think that there's ways that we could look at doing this, like for instance, after 9 o'clock at night until 7 o'clock in the morning, not providing Wi-Fi service, because we can set a timer on that, on when it turns on and when it turns off. But that's not necessarily something that we can identify.
Well, we will identify it as soon as we turn it off and they come in and yell about it. So,
Well, I think that that's really the only way to determine,
yeah.
if these are motivated users who really need it.
And I think if they are, we can bring that back to the board and kind of come up with a different solution. But we aren't the only place in town that you can get free Wi-Fi 24/7. So there are other options.
Okay. In that case, unless there's any further discussion, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we try restricting the Wi-Fi to library open hours.
I'll second that motion.
All right, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to item 5D, sending Board of Trustee members to the NLA MPLA conference.
So the Nevada Library Association and Mountain Plains Library Association Conference will be at the Hard Rock Cafe or Hard Rock Hotel in South Lake Tahoe on October 17th and 18th. And there are funds in the library's gift fund, travel fund, to send board members to conferences. It is close, and so that gives us that opportunity that if any board members did want to attend, that now would be the time to make that determination. It is early bird pricing, so it is a little bit cheaper now than it will be after, I believe it's September 1st, August 31st. It's a 2-day event. The keynote speaker is an individual who has written about maker spaces and making it in libraries. So that will be interesting. Patrick Sweeney, who is from Every Library, who supports, and it's a PAC that supports library and library legislation, is also going to be there giving a pre-conference as well as a session at the conference. I think that would be potentially helpful for the Friends of the Library and library development on our end moving forward. I think that they have some good things that they can teach us. Amy would be able to tell you a little bit more about some of the presentations since she is on the program committee, if you are curious.
I mean, I'd like to hear more about it.
There are a wide variety of programs that we have lined up. The theme for the conference is turn up the volume. Goes with the location, the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino. So we had a lot of submissions about sound and video, and also just like creating. There were a lot of advocacy. We're going to have an entire track about library advocacy and promoting your library and getting friends groups and other partnerships involved. And that's one of the parts that I'm most excited about.
Amy,
Yes.
is that part, which day is that part on?
I don't have a finished schedule yet.
Okay.
It should be throughout the conference, but the idea of the tracks is that you could kind of put a series of programs with a similar theme together, so that if somebody wanted to focus on that theme, they could kind of follow that throughout the kind of 2-day conference. You don't have to stick to a track, but it helps organize your schedule if that's something you want to do. So we'll probably go, I think there's enough programs in that one that will last both days. There's also a lot of programs about STEM and early literacy are two of the other big topics that we got submissions on. And I have a full list somewhere if you want more details. And, opening keynote speaker. Programs doesn't actually do the keynote speaker, so I don't even opening keynote speaker, Greg Harris, President and CEO of the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in Cleveland, which I did not visit when we were there, but it was right there. And then the second keynote is Dale Dougherty, founder and CEO of Make Media and publisher of Make Magazine. They also do a lot of books. I've purchased books from them before. And there's a lot of pre-conference workshops. The conferences, NLA conferences I've attended in the past, there'll be like one or so pre-conferences. We have 3 this year, which is really cool. So again, one is early literacy in libraries at home and going to the dogs. What is this one about? We're doing regular programs, not a pre-conference. So it's about early childhood development and reading as a family. And I think where the dogs come in is that's the programs like we do at the library with the reading to the dogs kind of program. I know there's a lot of libraries throughout the country that do similar programs. One of the other pre-conferences that a lot of people are excited about is the making maker spaces. That's a fun title. So there's an interactive session on that, how to start them, how to run them, why to run them. And then the third one is strategic planning, which I'm also excited about. It's called Strategic Planning from Every Angle. I know we have a strategic plan coming up to work on in the next couple of years here, so that might also be relevant. So lots of cool stuff. And it's at Tahoe, so that's fun.
And the reason that the cost is what it is for this conference is because it's also an MPLA conference. So those are Mountain Plains Library Association. So we're talking Oklahoma, Wyoming, Montana. I think Utah is part of it, Arizona, and Colorado and New Mexico. So there's a lot more variety. We do have speakers coming in from all of those states. So it's not just Nevada libraries talking about Nevada libraries this year.
I will let you know at the end of the meeting, okay? Because I'm interested in going.
Okay, that'll be great. What's in your packet, the deadline is the 31st. I would need to know by the 30th, however, so we can make sure and secure the early bird registration.
And if the library is going to pay for it out of the gift fund, you do need to make a motion on it for as many of you that want to go today.
So do we need to get a head count of people who are interested and then approve that amount out of the gift fund? Or, I mean, I guess we can just approve the full amount and then use whatever we need to.
That'd probably be the safest thing to do. Is go ahead and say 5.
We know that we can't use more than that, so.
Yeah.
Right.
You can approve, she just was saying you can approve it and then spend less. So you can approve for all of you to go and then not have all of you go.
Okay. All right.
I'll make a motion that we request $500 for the $100 each for each member of the board.
I'll second that motion.
All right, those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Moving on to item 5E, funding for the installation of the cradle point on the pedal library.
Natalie Wood, Creative Learning Manager for the record. For this request, it is to get the cradle point put onto the pedal library utilizing gift fund monies that we earned through the Kohl's Cares donation fund. The Friends donated that to the library for programming, and this is just to confirm that we want to utilize that for the pedal library cradle point. The quote is attached. As you see, they donated $506.97 towards the project. They'll get their sticker on the pedal library just like anyone else that has donated funds. Any questions?
What is it?
The cradle point would be the Wi-Fi unit that's on top of it.
Oh, okay.
We have the Wi-Fi unit also on our maker van, but the cradle point installation for the pedal library was a little bit more difficult because it's not a vehicle and it doesn't have that easy setup. So they had to create a design to fabricate it onto it to make sure that it is still lightweight. We still have a battery in it that's lightweight, and then it functions to provide the Wi-Fi service when we take the pedal library out to various outreach events.
And so you guys are aware the reason we aren't just going with a traditional Wi-Fi hotspot in the pedal library is because you can hook up to 5 or 6 items on that device before service quality drops, etc. These cradle points are what the city actually use on our sheriff's vehicles, and they can hold a lot more devices can be on those without a reduction in the bandwidth that they're receiving through the internet service. But it's still the same monthly cost.
If there wasn't any further discussion, I would entertain a motion.
I move that we approve the spending out of the gift fund to put the cradle point on the pedal library.
Okay.
I'll second it.
All right. Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. And moving on to item 6, the library director administrative reports.
Okay, so the first one that I'm going to go through is the end FY17 for the budget. This is pretty much the final. We did identify a couple items that are getting moved or have to be fixed in this because the city is not closing FY17 until the end of this month. But what you're going to go ahead and see here is our city funds. We were not fully expended. We still had about 3% that we gave back to the city, which is a good amount. That is what's requested to give back each year and not be fully expended. So we were able to accommodate that. In grant funding, as you can see, we expended about almost $40,000 in grant funding throughout the year, which is, again, a good, healthy amount, and we were able to do that within our budget and within the grant budgets. In the gift fund, what you're going to see is the amount that's expended. It is a little bit over $100,000, but that also includes all of the funding from the Friends. And in the graph there, you'll see in the blue what just came out of the general gift fund versus what came out of the Friends funding that was in the gift fund. Do you not have page numbers? Is that what's going on?
I don't have any data in my tables. Like I've just got a solid
Okay, so that has
pie
to do
chart.
with how we're printing PDFs. Diane, do you want to maybe give him the other Diane's packet if it's good? We send the packets from upstairs down to the printer, and sometimes the heavy data in the PDFs gets compromised.
Right, I gotcha.
Technology.
Yeah.
Give Jeremy a minute to look at those.
Much better.
Any questions on the end of the FY17 budget reports? We will bring that back to you again in September with the final numbers, but we were hoping that we were all good to go this time, and we did catch a couple things that we had to move around, so. Okay, so the next item is the budget up to this point in August. Since we didn't have a July meeting, you will see some spending here, but you won't see any grant funds, gift funds, or Friends of the Library funds that have hit yet, and so your reports are going to be pretty sparse here. What you're going to see is there are expenses in the gift fund, but you are going to see the general fund, the expenses are going to be mainly staff related. So salaries, hourly, administrative pay, management leave pay, temporary staffing, which is you're now seeing here rather than in our services and supplies professional services budget line item. And that is the marathon staffing that we have at the library, which is temporary staffing. Jeremy, do you? Okay. Which is our temporary staffing, and that is different than our professional services, like bringing in Nevada Photo Source to take photos and those types of things. Our professional staffing is the help that we have right now with some of our technology, some of our accounting, as well as we're still using one of our individuals from our mobile makerspace grant to help at the library, and our Boys and Girls Club individual. Right, Diane?
Yeah, boys and girls, although that's in gift.
But it's still
It's still the
yeah,
0125,
okay.
the new category, and that's been designated by the city. They have now multiple temporary services agencies that can be used in the city. They joined the state contract, and they created this line item to be able to track the temporary services and pull them apart from either hourly, that city hourly, or professional services in the services category.
So the other items that you'll see expenses in here is training, and what we did there is Library Juice, who's a provider of library education, We purchased with them 15 licenses for individual classes. So every single full-time staff member will receive one class that they have to complete this year. So this fiscal year, they get to decide which class it is with their supervisor to ensure that it's something that's related to what they're doing or will help them with what they're doing or what they want to do in the future. And so that's one of the ways that we were able to do that. We did get a group discount by buying it as a group like that. The state library also provides some classes through Library Juice for free, free to charge for us. And so that gives the staff who do want more than one class the opportunity to take additional classes at no further cost to us. We do have some spending in our book and periodicals, as well as telephone, power, and heating. So on to our grant funds. We will have the State Collection Development Grant again. We will have the El Dia de los Niños, or El Dia grant, the statewide reading or the summer grant, and then our Makerspace grant. And then we also have a Playaway grant that I don't think that we had pulled a number for yet through finance. So there's no expenses in there, so you will see no graph. So in the gift fund, what you're going to see is our hourly or seasonal. That is currently James, and that is our Boys and Girls Club individual. And that Boys and Girls Club funding does come from the Friends of the Library to help provide services over at the Boys and Girls Club. So that is why salaries are coming out of the gift fund. Are there any questions on that? Okay. To my director's report, I don't have a written report for you today, but we've got some fun things to report. So we have a biennial report that's going to be coming soon. We're working with Nevada PhotoSource to publish that. That's also in preparation for an application for the National Medal through the Institute of Museum and Library Services. Diane can kind of talk about that a little bit during her report, but that's what we're kind of in preparation for. We have also had a staff training this last Friday, and we brought on board through professional services Di Hansen, who is her business is What Works Coaching, and it's here in Carson City. And Phyllis got a little bit out of it because the Friends of the Library provided lunch for staff at that event and a little bit of appreciation there. But I just kind of wanted to give you an idea of the rundown of the agenda, because it's not just one day of staff training. She actually interviewed staff prior to the training, built the training specifically to cover concerns of staff, and then is developing and working with each team outside of this training to then move forward. So this is addressing some of the communication that's come up and has been talked about, and just really, as well as team building and really getting those teams functioning. So we had a welcome introduction and setting the playground up and reviewing the agenda. We talked about assertiveness, self-talk, flight or flight, constructive expression, asking for what you need. It's not correction, it's feedback, and accountability. Then we talked about collaboration skills, facilitating and attending great meetings, building the right team for the project, and understanding empathy. Then we talked about time management skills, goal setting, prioritization, and setting due dates. We then talked about time management skills, timeline awareness, how to ask for action, constructive follow-up, balancing tasks, and designing your day. We then went with motivation skills, talking about types of stress, stress management techniques, meditation, focusing on solution versus the problem. And then we finished it up. We didn't get into all of these, but we talked about fine-tuning processes, changing and succeeding, communication channels, approval process communication, and busting the silos. And since we are a library, and we are librarians and library professionals, we are reading this book that she suggested that we read as part of the coaching. And this is Our Iceberg is Melting. And it's essentially, it's a fable. And then that fable kind of teaches us different things, and we talk about those things in a group. So it's a little bit of a book club as well. So then, with that, I did actually receive good feedback from 2 of our employees so far, even though we're not actually done with that process. So I think that it was well worth the money that we spent, and well worth having her come in and work with us. So we'll kind of see where that goes, and we'll keep you updated on what that looks like. The next item is, I'll go ahead and do this announcement first. So the city is doing a nominate your fellow employee for Employee of the Quarter. And I wanted to get that on record at this board meeting as well. So that is available. There is essentially a cash prize associated with that. It's something that the city manager implemented after his review. And I think that will be a fun thing for our staff to participate in and be involved with. The next item, we have a new librarian who will be starting September 1st. His name is Enrique
Valdivia.
And he comes to us from the state library via Churchill County Library. So he's kind of a known entity around Northern Nevada's library world, but we are really excited to have him join. He's going to be taking Maria's position as a circulation librarian, as Maria moved over and took Aubrey's position under creative learning as the librarian there. So that's exciting. I then have a construction update for you. For the floors and for the painting, it's not, Diane and I met with the project manager, and I don't know what Stephanie's title is, but she is under the city's engineer.
She's the coordinator of essentially city assets.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So we met with her, and we had a discussion about what the timeline looked like and what timeline we needed, and we were politely told that they would try their hardest to get us signed up for that timeline. However, because construction is currently booming, they don't have to take our jobs, and so we don't know if we're going to be able to do that time period, which is that time period in December. So December 10th to 16th through the middle of January. They have put out a request for quotes during that time period, and have asked us if we know any companies who might be interested in doing it, and doing it during the time period we would like it done in. They said currently that companies are generally requesting that they have a large window of time to be able to do these projects in. And unfortunately, because we are a public building and we are an open access public building, that's not going to really work for what we need. And so we are going to work with them and work with our project manager to make sure that we are doing the best for our community. But it does look like it might be a little bit difficult to make sure that we are closed the shortest amount of time possible. Diane might have something to add on that.
And the one contractor that I did get good news today, that the contractor, or they have a contractor secured for the painting of the interior and exterior of the building. That's the easy part. The contractor that we're looking, or they are looking for specifically, is for the concrete for the floors. I believe they had one quote, and I was able to find one other quote from a couple of years ago that I sent on to the project manager as well. But they did have that concern that with construction booming, that we might run into some bumps.
Okay, so my last item that I have is for the September agenda, we are going to be bringing to you a slew of policies and processes. That includes the library card. We will also be looking at our fines and fees, and lifelong learning policy for staff that goes along with being required to take that one class that I had spoke about earlier. So they're not long policies, they're not long procedures, but we will be bringing a chunk of those to you. And then throughout the next couple of meetings, we'll be looking at more aspects of our public policy, and we'll be working with Iris when necessary to make sure that we're in compliance as well. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much. With that, we can move on to item 7, our other administrative reports, starting with the grants admin update.
Thank you, Diane Baker, for the record. What you have in your report just shows that we had finished very, very well with the grant portion of the mobile makerspace. One of our final programs was with Juvenile Detention Center. Really great interaction and surprising, even though they're close, high school age for the most part that were there, had not had a chance to do stop motion animation, had a great interaction with the participants that were there. And what you'd heard already from Sina, that we have kept on our part-time individual for different events that we have had and continue to have with the mobile makerspace. And this is in conjunction with Creative Learning. They're taking over a lot of the programming with that and had done Mobile Maker Fair, the mini Mobile Maker Fair up in Reno, and Boys and Girls Club, and there's additional events coming up in the fall as well. So another grant project that is being integrated into our services with the library. The other item Sina had also mentioned was the national medal that is through the Institute of Museum and Library Services. We're underway with that. We're going to be using the information that is being produced for the biennial report. I have been in contact with our 3 congressional representatives, both senators and our congressman. We are able to get letters of support from those individuals in addition to a limited number of letters. Also looking to see if we can encourage one of those individuals to actually do the nomination for the medal. And so we'll be continuing to work on that for the October 2nd deadline submission. Do you have any questions on that or anything else? Okay.
Thank you very much, Diane. Moving on to the Access Services update.
Kathy Rush, Access Services Manager. So in your packet, you see the report for Access Services, where we had a bumper crop of materials come in after the changeover of the fiscal year, where we did not order for a while we got our new budget set up. And then we typically get a lot of materials in July and in August. We had about 250 lease books come in, about 500 other books for youth and adults, and about 200 AV items, audiobook and movies and music. So the Access Services team, along with help from other staff, got those cataloged and processed and out to the public. And I wanted to highlight our ever-present and very important new sticker that we put on new items that come, not all new items, but books in particular, that when they're returned by patrons, let staff know that those are new and go right out to the new book kiosks where they are immediately visible and very popular, and they circulate very heavily for that reason. And then the second item on the report is we did have another bout of bed bugs, or a bed bug anyway, and possibly more than one bug, that was caught very quickly by a staff member. So we had the opportunity, not that we want the opportunity, but we had the opportunity to use our thermal strike bed bug zapper, or cooker, where we heat the little guys up to a point where they are no longer with us. So anyway, those items have been sterilized essentially, and were able to be put back into the collection. And so we're really happy to have that piece of equipment for any future outbreaks, which we hope are very few and far between. Any questions?
I would just like to say this was not an outbreak. This was a bed bug on one book that was caught by staff.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Kathy.
Pretty sad day.
Yeah.
Moving on to the collection development update.
Staying on, Amy Lauder, Collection Development Manager for the record. The first thing on my report, Rachel and I got the opportunity this past month to attend the Overdrive Digipalooza conference in Cleveland, Ohio, and this is their biannual international user conference that they hold to discuss collection development techniques, marketing, upcoming products, and other news in their industry and company. So it was really my favorite part of conferences is going to go talk to librarians from all over the country, see what they're doing. So that was really nice. And we also got some good ideas about promoting our collections and targeting areas that could use more editions and other areas that could just use more promotion. So that was very helpful. We did not get to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but we did get a chance to go visit the main branch of the Cleveland Public Library. Again, always nice to go visit other buildings and see how they're laid out, how they set things up. So that's always very instructive. So I think that was a really fun opportunity and very useful opportunity for us to have. The other part of the report I have here today, we got the chance to add a few new electronic resources this fiscal year. The top two especially have been in high demand with patrons who are interested in genealogy and family history specifically. We now have ProQuest Ancestry Library Edition that's available in the library building only for patrons to use for genealogical research. And then newspapers.com, we have the Western edition that has several Western states, several Nevada newspapers, and other publications. And I believe that one's available on-site and from home. So that's also very in demand for people who do historical research. The third one I have on here is Mergent Intellect, which is a business research database. We got to have our rep from that come out to the Adams Hub and present to some of our local business people who just loved it. They were so excited. They were very interested. They had a lot of good questions. So that was really nice to have. For Phyllis over there, we have continued to get Hazel Ryland donations, so we were able to add, now we have 50 new large print books for the collection. You have even more money for me. We'll keep adding them. And just to tag on to Kathy's note about you got a lot of new books in the past month and a half since we started the fiscal year, and it's actually a little bit more than usual because we are kind of planning around that projected closure in the middle of the year for those renovations. So we're hoping that stays more or less on schedule because we're planning weeding projects so we can kind of cut down the number of books we have to pack and unpack, and also planning our spending so that we're spending on either side of that closure and not trying to receive and process books while we're closed, because that would just kind of be impossible. So we're all trying to keep all those wheels turning and going more or less in the right direction. So those are some of our big projects right now. Does anybody have any questions? Okay.
Thank you very much, Amy.
All right, thank you.
And finally, our creative learning update.
Natalie Wood, Creative Learning Manager for the record. The first item I have is school is back in, so the Digitorium is open. We started on Monday, and we are open from 2:30 Sunday or Monday through Thursday. The end time is a little bit different depending on our closure, and then Sunday we're open as well. With that, we are hiring for 2 interns. They have to be a Carson High School student. That is a sophomore or above. That application process is closing on September 1st, so if you know anybody, send them our way or send them to the CTE office at Carson High School. That is their career and technical education office there. Any questions on that one? We're very excited. They're starting to roll in. The second item is Summer Learning Challenge. Of course, that is all done and ended. We wrapped up. We had a Touch a Truck event to end the party and do our raffles. We had over 100 participants. And then our total participants for the program was 645, and our total minutes logged was 181,630 minutes. Okay, any questions on that? I know I don't have the solar eclipse on this one, but solar eclipse event that we had on Monday went really well. We had, our total count was over 250. I believe it's like 257, but I don't have it off the top of my head. We had a wait list, but everyone was able to get glasses. It was a fun event. Everyone enjoyed it. I think it went pretty smooth as well. Staff seemed to enjoy it. Patrons enjoyed it. Amanda enjoyed it. Jeremy enjoyed it. Phyllis enjoyed it. So we had a good time. Any questions on that one? Okay, that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Natalie. All right, moving on to item 8, board member announcements and RFIs. Do any board members have any announcements? No. Okay. In that case, we'll move on to item 9, public comment. If any members of the public wish to address the Library Board of Trustees, now's the time. Seeing none, we will move on to, I believe, adjournment. Yeah, adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We are adjourned.